Also in Ohio this afternoon, where the defense has pleaded guilty. The sentencing for William Mozingo is underway in the 4 days of hell trial. Opening statements were set to begin today, but before that jury selection could begin, that plea was announced to the court. This was guilty to kidnapping and beating charges in the incident involving 23-year-old Chloe Jones. But for now, we're going to go back into the courtroom in that sentencing trial for Mozingo. But first, we want to get you caught up on this case. We were about to start with the entire trial and opening statements that would have laid everything out. Here's a look back on the background of the case with lead anchor Vinny Politan.
William, this is the Akron Police Department. This is your last chance. Come out now with your hands up.
Police pry open the door after the owner of the property calls 911 about this man, William Mozingo Jr.
I need to warn the police that are coming here.
Need to warn them about what?
Well, he is a violent offender.
As police arrest Mozingo, he yells out to a woman who was in the garage.
I love you, Chloe.
The woman is Chloe Jones. Police help her down from the ceiling. And Jones's mother says 4 days of terror led up to this moment.
He doused her in gasoline and was threatening to catch her on fire.
Jones's mother says Mozingo beat her daughter with a baseball bat and his fists.
He would cuddle her in between beatings.
Jones spoke about her experience with station WJW.
It was terrifying, you know, like being in fear for your life, like countless of times, times I can even count of like how many times he's threatened my life.
Just a few months prior to this arrest, Mozingo was released from prison on kidnapping charges in a different case.
My daughter's never gonna be the same. Her life as she knows it is over. Because he was allowed to walk out in the streets, and that is not acceptable.
Mozingo has been indicted on 2 counts of kidnapping, felonious assault, and abduction of Jones.
The understanding that we have from what Mozingo has indicated to the court is the reason that he pleaded guilty is he wanted to spare the victim in this case, Chloe, going to trial and having to testify. So they've moved into the sentencing for William Mozingo. Let's go into court now and listen to the start of that.
Several pieces of evidence that would have been presented at trial that we think is pertinent and should be shown for the court. Prosecutor Emily Williams will then play those few short snippets of videos of the defendant during this time of captivity for the court.
All right. Rachel?
Good afternoon, Your Honor. This is on behalf of Chloe Jones, the victim in this case. My name is Chloe Jones. A year ago, I was homeless and I came to you because you promised me shelter and safety. But that isn't what happened. You held me captive for 4 days, beat me within an inch of my life, strangled me, poured gasoline on me, and told me that you would burn me alive. Continually threatened to kill me. You made sure that I knew my life was fully in your hands and that you had complete control over me. You strangled me over and over again and told me, don't pass out. If you pass out, I'll cut your throat. All that time, all I could think about was my son and that I would never see him again. In fact, you promised me that I would never see him again and that I would never make it out of this alive. You held me under the constant threat of death by holding a knife to my throat. What happened to me over the course of those 4 days has changed me forever, not only mentally, but physically. Because of you, I have a traumatic brain injury that I will forever suffer the effects of. Because of you, I battle anxiety and PTSD, night terrors. Even in my sleep, I get no rest. It is an effort just to go outside, constantly fearing that this will happen to me again. But know that I will continue to live my life. You no longer have power over me, and I am the one in control. After this day, you will go to prison, and I will go back to my son, my family, and those who love me. I will continue to grow and live and heal despite what you've done. Your Honor, he has done these horrendous things before and he will do it again. I don't ever want him to have the opportunity to hurt another person. He needs to go to prison for as long as possible. 25 years is not enough. He will still be a strong man in 25 years and still capable of hurting another. No time will ever be enough, but Your Honor, I have faith that you will hear my story and the state's argument and make the right decision. Thank you.
Thank you.
Your Honor, at this time, I believe Floyd's mom is going to take the stand.
Okay. Okay, so we're going to need you to state your, first of all, make sure that that light is blue there.
No worries. Hi, my
There you
name's
go.
Jessie Barham. I'm Chloe Jones's mom.
All right, could you spell your last name?
Barham.
All right, and then I know when doing something like this, anxiety and all that can get in there, so just try to keep it a little slower and tell
Yes,
me what
ma'am.
it is you want to share. Thank you.
Yes, ma'am. Thank you so much again. I did not prepare a statement because of the fact that I did not expect things to go this way today. The fact of the matter is that this man should not have even been out. He should not have even been free, because this is not the first time that you have abducted a woman, held her captive, and tortured her for days on end. This is not the second time that you've abducted a woman, held her captive, and tortured her. This is not the third time that you have abducted a woman, held her captive, and tortured her. This is actually the fourth time that you will be convicted of abducting a woman, holding her captive, and torturing her. You should never have been out on the streets in the first place in order to harm my daughter. And I pray to God, under these circumstances, that, Your Honor, you hear my daughter's story and know his story. Because it's not it's not if he will offend again, it's when he will offend again. And when in 25 years, he will be still a strong man, and probably stronger, because they lift weights on those in those freaking jailhouses, and he will be a danger to society. He waited 2 months after his second conviction and serving 18 months in prison. He waited 2 months before he offended again. 2 months before he kidnapped another woman and tortured her. My daughter should never have been your victim. You poured gasoline on my child and threatened to burn her alive. You beat her over the head with a baseball bat. You beat her from head to toe for days. You punched her in her face so many times over the course of 4 days that she has paralysis on her left side of her face. She couldn't even open her eyes. She had blood dripping out of her ears. She had a brain bleed and was in ICU for 3 days. You did this to my daughter. You did this to my child. And you're not a man. That's not what a man does. A man protects women. You are evil. You're a villain. And you should never be allowed to see the light of day ever again, because you are a predator. You have an MO, and you've proven it time and time and time and time again. This will be your fourth conviction for the exact same offense. Oh, I'll say it again. Fourth time. Fourth time. Your Honor, my daughter is never going to be the same. She can't retain any new information because of she has a traumatic brain injury. She cannot even retain new information. She as far as working, she's not able to get a job, not only because of the physical, but because of the psychological damage that has been done to my child. She's going to suffer probably way longer than him, which is not fair. This wasn't a domestic violence sort of thing. This was not a back and forth. This was my daughter 100% of the time absolutely victimized and submissive to him, terrified for her life, as he promised that she was never going to get out of there. He promised her that she was going to die at his hands. He should be getting attempted murder charges with as many times as he strangled her and dared her to pass out because he was going to cut her throat if she did. He broke her arm and her finger just because she was trying to defend herself from a baseball bat to her head. Facial fractures. Yeah, you did. We got the medical records. Your Honor, all I ask is that you do what all the other courts and all the other judges before you did not do. Protect every single woman that he could get his hands on eventually. Your Honor, you have the power and you are within the law to put him away until he is no longer a danger to anyone, until he is feeble, until he is wetting his diapers. You don't scare me, William.
Ma'am, just stay focused on talking to me, okay?
Yes, ma'am. I apologize. The other judges before you barely gave him a slap on the wrist, and even 25 years at this point, in my opinion, would be a slap on the wrist considering the fact that he has proven that he loves to do this. He has over 400 videotapes of my daughter being abused by him. He videotaped it because he's that sick. I don't know if he was going to sell her or sell the videos for some smut stuff online. I don't know, but I do know that anyone who takes 400 plus videos of my child getting assaulted violently, and threatened, her life threatened hundreds of times, strangled a dozen times at least. Anyone who has that in them to want to videotape that, there's something deeply, deeply wrong with that person. And that is the kind of person that has proven he cannot be allowed out in polite society, because that's just guaranteeing that someone else is going to have to go through what my daughter and countless, there's no telling how many girls he's done this to. My daughter just was strong enough to come today and be willing to testify, and that's the only reason why he pled guilty today, because he didn't want her to get on the stand and testify against him, because he knew that that would be damning. And I mean that. I'm not cursing.
Thank you.
That's all I have to say.
All right, thank you.
Thank you.
The body language inside of this courtroom is screaming, even louder than the words that this poor mother is having to share inside of this courtroom. I mean, you can see her hands shaking as she is sharing her outrage to the court, and the defendant with his body turned away from the woman who is speaking, and then at the end, him looking at her and smiling. I mean, it's despicable, really, for him to even speak to and look at a victim's mother in that way. We have more ahead. The prosecution is going to make their arguments about the penalty they want to see for William Mozingo after this.
He says I went to the wrong crowd, but I think I was the wrong crowd.
Nobody in this world loves you like your parents.
And he said to me, you know, wouldn't it be cool if I came with your hands and had a party?
I couldn't get out of my head. I couldn't stop.
Which do you think you are? Sick and treatable, or irredeemably mad?
Interview with a Killer. Season finale, Sunday, 8/7 Central. And don't miss the new season coming in 2025, only on Court TV.
Hey. Let's go back to Ohio now, where we are watching the sentencing for William Mozingo. He pleaded guilty earlier today to kidnapping and beating a 23-year-old woman over the course of 4 days. Let's go back in now. We're listening to the arguments from the prosecution on what they think the sentence should be for this convict.
A photo of Chloe Jones on the day that she was rescued, and the police responded in Akron to that garage. Your Honor, on October 12th of 2023, Chloe Rain Jones thought she was meeting up with the defendant for something brief, maybe a night. Your Honor, that changed very abruptly. What initially was an encounter with William Mozingo, conversation in this garage owned by Mr. Mozingo's friends, Christine and Michael Scott, soon turned into a very aggressive speech and conversation. Chloe Jones was subjected to paranoia by the defendant and continual threats. Most importantly, her liberty was restricted by Mr. Mozingo very early on during her times in that garage. Your Honor, he started off agitated, and the state can say that with confidence because we do have those videos that were found and extracted from the defendant's phone. He took selfies and videos of himself as he berated Chloe Jones, as he threatened her, and eventually he restricted her from moving. After demanding that she not move and controlling her every step, the defendant assaulted Chloe Jones over the course of 4 days. What you're looking at, Your Honor, on the screen is Chloe as she had just emerged. Your Honor, we have temporary disfigurement as part of the Ohio Revised Code for serious physical injury. And Your Honor, the state submits to you, this is a prime example of someone who has suffered temporary disfigurement. She has one eye that is completely shut. The EMTs that dealt with her that day on the scene notated that she had pus in that eye. The other eye is almost nearly shut. As you can see, so much blood had accumulated in both of those eyes. There are videos on the defendant's phone that were extracted where he talks about her eye and then threatens to beat her in the other eye. Your Honor, as you can see, that's 2 separate beatings right there. Now, Chloe was seen at the hospital. She was admitted. She had a fractured nasal bone. She had a fractured bone in her hand. She had traumatic cephalohematoma. She had a traumatic brain injury, subdural hematoma, multiple contusions across her legs, her arms, her chest. She was swollen from the top of her head all the way down. If you look closely, Chloe appears to have a golden glow to her face. Your Honor, those are bruises to the entirety of both sides of her face and her cheeks. She suffered facial paralysis. She had bruising to both sides of her face near her ear, and her ear had blood in them. Your Honor, she was beat within an inch of her life. As Chloe's mom has stated, the defendant has been previously convicted of abduction in Adams County and Stark County. He was also most recently charged with kidnapping in Stark County in 2020, and he pled to aggravated assault, a felony of the 4th degree. We also think it's important to note that the defendant had escaped from CBCF. Prior to holding Chloe Jones captive, he was out on a warrant. We'd like to take just a second to thank the men and women of Akron Police Department for their efforts, for responding to the scene, providing Chloe Jones the help that she needed, for being aggressive in how they approached this case, for extracting all of the videos from the defendant's cell phone. Your Honor, I think it goes without saying that this particular defendant is a danger to our community. The state argues he's a menace. He's a danger to not only our community, but every community in Ohio. Wherever he goes, he will wreak havoc. His criminal history tells us that. The state is asking for a minimum of 25 years in prison. he needs to.
Let's bring in trial attorney Ron Zambrano and also Michael Jaffer with us as well, national trial attorney. Thank you both for weighing in on this case. It's a difficult one when you see those images of Chloe Jones's face, what she endured those 4 days, that this man who had been convicted before for kidnapping a woman and doing things, assaulting her. Ron, this judge has a very important task in this case. Every judge does, but for a case like this one, where there's a prior history, there is much more pressure, is there not? Ron, I think you're on mute, so I'm going to give you a chance to unmute yourself and start again. If not, we will go to Michael and get your audio checked. All right, Michael, you weigh in, and Ron, we will work on your audio.
This judge has a ton of pressure on her, but I think this is an easy one. I think she's going to sentence this character to the max. To my understanding, there are 4 different charges he pled guilty to. The combination of them would be 25 years. That's my understanding of it. And so if that's, but the judge can say you have to serve these things consecutively. And so she could sentence him to the 25 years. I think she's going to do it. She's got a lot of pressure because there's a lot of community pressure, but at the end of the day, this one seems like an easy one to me, Julia. I mean, look at the tattoos on his face. Look at his prior convictions. Look at the torture he put her through. If this was a murder case, he'd be going away for 1,000,000 years. It's not a murder case, you know, so she's going to sentence him pretty aggressively. He's going to be in multiple decades in prison because of this. He is a menace. They use my favorite word in the elocution, which is you're a villain. He is a villain. There are villains in society. This is a villain. The judge is going to sentence him accordingly. There's no political reason for why this judge to give him any break. So that's what it comes down to, right? When a defendant is in a courtroom and they have their family and his family's crying and he's awesome, he's great, he's found God, he's done all these things. That's when a judge will go beneath her maximum abilities. But there's nothing here. He's standing in this courtroom all alone. His courtroom demeanor says it all. He's even got tattoos on his eyelids. He's going to jail for the max. I think, in my opinion, in this case, the max is 25 years. The judge is going to give him that.
Yeah, Ron, let's talk about that courtroom demeanor. Just the way that he reacted with the mother of Chloe Jones, giving her statement, her victim impact statement, really to this court, where first of all, he intentionally turned his back on her. He was sort of seated sideways where he could have seen her, but then he turned around to make sure she saw his back. And then at one point, when she was talking about what should happen to him behind bars, he turned around and looked at her and grinned.
It's disgusting. But for the judge mostly saying there's no attempt at trying to say that he should not be, punished. There's no attempt from him to say, listen, I kind of recognize what I did. He's unapologetic. He is defiant. And I think maybe he is psychotic and doesn't care, but I think the judge is going to read that you have no empathy for what you've done. You have no regret for what you've done. And the best for society is to put him as in jail as much as she can.
And you heard the hundreds of videos that they have to show the abuse that he recorded himself. We're going to hit a break, and when we come back, we'll listen to how this defense is going to try and make an argument to this judge that something lesser should be given to the man who has pleaded guilty to kidnapping and aggravated assault.
Join the million.
Welcome back to Court TV Live. I'm Julia Janae, and we are bringing you the sentencing for William Mozingo, happening in Ohio. Mozingo has pleaded guilty to multiple charges, including kidnapping and felonious assault for an attack on 23-year-old Chloe Jones. The state here says that Chloe thought she was meeting Mozingo for something brief. He ended up holding her captive and abusing her in a garage for several days, 4 to be exact. Let's get you back into the courtroom now. We're about to hear arguments from the defense team that's representing Mozingo to make an argument about why he should get a lower punishment than the 25 years requested by the state.
At some point in time, it goes south and things change. So when you watch those videos, and when he calls her a bitch, and when he calls her a whore, and when he says he's going to cut her head off, and all kinds of things like that, that still does not change, I don't think, the legal analysis that you have to do. So we've already, I believe, agreed that the two kidnappings and the abduction, they would merge for the purposes of sentencing. They talk about the felonious assaults being the various different injuries. She did have a broken fifth metacarpal on her left hand. She did have a broken nose. She did have a subdural hematoma. But to say that they happened at different times over the course of 4 days, or we would say 3 days, but regardless, I don't think that they can show that that happened. I mean, frankly, Judge, if these injuries happened when my client hit her with a baseball bat and that caused her broken nose, and she's trying to defend herself and that causes the broken wrist, and that causes a subdural hematoma, that's one animus. So if he slapped her on day 2, that's not a felonious assault. And if these injuries happened with the one beating with the baseball bat, that's one count of felonious assault. And I think the burden is on the state to prove that these injuries happened from separate times. Even if she was assaulted, misdemeanorly assaulted on these various different days, they have to prove that the various kinds of serious physical harm that she suffered resulted from separate animus, not at the same time. And I don't think they can show that, even if the court chooses to believe that this assault took place over a couple of days. I don't think legally that they've shown that. I think the most important video that they showed was, I think it was the third one where Emily said was going to be very loud. What happens in this situation, Judge, is they are living in a garage, and there are beams 10, 12 feet up in the air, and there's plywood on those beams, and that's where they would sleep. The video that you saw, video number 3, is at one point in time, and Chloe admits this to the cops, she admits it all over the medical records, that collapses, and she falls down without able to brace herself from 12 feet up in the air. So, do injuries come from that? Well, again, I think the burden is on the state to show that these are all separate animus. I don't know if black eyes are a separate serious physical harm. I do know that if you've ever broken your nose or seen anybody with a broken nose, the eyes are impacted the same way. Judge, he does have a record. We've discussed that. You know that. What I'm asking the court to consider is, on the kidnapping, because he has the priors, give him 11 to 16 and a half. On the felonious assault, Chloe's mom said he pled guilty because he didn't want to hear her testify. In a way, that's true, but he pled guilty because he didn't want her to go through what would probably be the worst day, which is definitely the worst day of her life, frankly, on national television. I think he deserves credit for not letting her do that. I would ask you to give him 5 years on the felonious assault, and I do believe that they merge, and then 2 years on the escape. If you run those consecutive, that is 18 to 23 and a half. I think it's appropriate in this case. I think, people that murder people, Judge, in the state of Ohio get a chance to get out at 15 years. I think a sentence of 18 to 23 and a half is appropriate. I would ask you to merge those felonious assaults because I don't think the state has met their burden to show that there was a separate animus, and it is their burden. They have not done that. And again, 18 to 23 and a half, I think by that time he will be well into his 50s. That's what I'm going to ask the court to sentence him to.
What about the strangulation charge? Count 10.
He pled to it. I would ask you to run that concurrent because I think the strangulation kind of is part of the felonious assault. I mean, or that would be the one separate thing. It would be a different animus for the strangulation than it would be for the serious physical harm on the felonious assault. So frankly, if the court chose to run that consecutive, I think legally you'd be okay to do that. But I would ask you to fashion a sentence of whatever you see fit for 18 to 23 and a half. Thank you.
Thank you. Did your client wish to say anything? All right, let's make sure the mic is to it and. Go ahead.
Yes, ma'am. First, I would just like to apologize to the court for taking up everybody's time and resources for the situation I've placed myself in and this court. Second, I would just like to say that this incident stems whenever we was both fueled up on methamphetamine, and I was already placed myself in a very bad situation. You know, as they said, I was already on the run for an escape, and so I've had a lot of time to think about it and reflect. And at this time, I'd just like to apologize to the victim and their family.
All right, thank you.
The defense here not asking for no time or probation. They're asking for 18 to 23 years, so not too far off from the 25 minimum that the state is asking for. And you heard they're relying on a separate animus, this idea, this legal theory that these crimes were committed all in the same act. So you heard the term merging. This defense is arguing that some of these charges merged together so they can't be sentenced separately because they all spring from one continuous act rather than these separate days of hell that the prosecution says this victim went through. Let's get to a break, because on the other side, we're going to hear what the judge's sentence will be for William Mozingo.
Tonight on Closing Arguments, don't miss the latest updates in the biggest cases. Join me and our panel of experts live as we break down today's new developments.
Closing Arguments tonight at 8/7 Central, only on Court TV.
It's the biggest story that we're covering. He is the boogeyman. Lori Daybell.
She said, "I will have you destroyed."
She's got another murder trial coming up.
A social media sensation, now a suspected killer.
Let's get you back inside of that Ohio courtroom where we are watching the sentencing for William Mozingo. He's pleaded guilty to several charges, all for an attack that lasted 4 days on a 23-year-old woman, Chloe Jones. That image there says it all. It's so difficult to see, but this is the extent of her injuries after she was trapped in a garage with the defendant in October of last year. Let's go into the courtroom now. We've heard the arguments from both sides. The state asking for 25 years as a minimum sentence. The defense asking for 18 to 23 and a half years. Let's see what the judge decides.
All right, we're going to get you a copy of that before you leave today. So when I am making a decision as to sentencing, I have to review the seriousness and the recidivism factors set forth in the revised code 2929.12. Clearly, and when we look at the seriousness factors, the victim suffered serious physical, psychological harm. And when I look at the recidivism factors, at the time that this happened, you were under post-release control for an earlier offense. You had a history of criminal convictions. You were out on a warrant at the time, and despite prior attempts to rehabilitate you, you engaged in the same behavior that you previously engaged in. And so I will find that both the seriousness and the recidivism factors weigh in favor of a prison sentence in this case, which I think is no surprise to anyone. Based on all the facts and circumstances and consideration of those relevant sentencing factors, considering the statement of the victim and the victim's family, the state, the defense, your statement, applying the minimum sanction, I'm determining will protect the public and punish you without imposing any unnecessary burden on state and local resources. And again, analyzing all the factors I'm required to analyze, I am going to impose the following sentence. So on counts, I will find that counts 1, 2, and 5 do merge for sentencing purposes. And on those counts, on count 1, I will impose a sentence of 11 to 16 and a half years under the Reagan-Tokes law, and I will review that with you again in a minute, because that is going to be the longest sentence that I impose. that will be the one that will carry the Raventokes tail. On counts 3, 4, 6, 7, and 8, all felonious assault counts, I am going to find that at least 2 of those are separate offenses. When I look at the TBI that was suffered and the injuries to her eyes, clearly there was enough of an impact to cause that type of injury. And then we've got the testimony of going to hurt your other eye. We've got the videos demonstrating that, and all those factors. I would consider any head injuries to be one serious physical harm, which would warrant a separate sentencing for purposes of everything. And then also we have the use of a bat, which is a deadly weapon, and then also we have the fractures in her hand and the bruises all over her body. I mean, I just don't see how bruises can be developed in different stages if they didn't happen in different stages, and that was what I was told today, is that the bruises were in different stages of development. So I'm going to impose a sentence of 5 years on count 3 and 5 years on count 4. On count 10, and counts, and I guess I should be more specific. On count 6, 7, and 8, I'm going to impose 4 years. I'm going to state that those 3 counts can be sentenced separately, but those will run concurrent with each other, but consecutive to counts 3 and 4, which will be consecutive. So we have 11 and a half, 16 and a half, plus another 10. The strangulation is a separate offense. I don't know how anybody could possibly, and the legislature went to the bother of creating a strangulation offense because of the fact that we have this activity occurring in our society right now where people think it's okay to strangle somebody. For that offense, I'm going to impose 2 years, and I'm going to impose 2 years for the escape. So that comes out to 25 to 31 and a half years. I am going to run counts 1, 2, and 5. Obviously, we said that merges. Consecutive with counts 3, consecutive with counts 4, concurrent with 6, 7, and 8, and consecutive with 10. And then the escape on the other case is consecutive by law. I will find consecutive sentences are required by statute because, first of all, for the 2-count cases, because the escape must run consecutive, but also in the kidnapping case, I believe consecutive sentences are necessary to protect the public and to punish you, and they're not disproportionate to the seriousness of your conduct and to the danger that you pose to the public. And both of these offenses were committed while you were out on post-release control, and your history of criminal conduct demonstrates consecutive terms are necessary to protect the public. I will note, as you know, you're not allowed to use drugs or alcohol while you're in prison. You may be tested for that. We calculated your jail time credit on our break. There's 394 days of jail time credit will be added to your journal entry. That starts today, or ends today. So anything after today, ODRC will calculate for you. So if you go back and you want to check it, we calculate as of the end of today.
And there you have it, the sentence from the judge there, 25 years, which is what the state asked for, to 31 and a half. So the parole board is going to be handling whether or not that is 25 or if it's closer to 31. Now, outside of the courthouse after this sentencing, the victim, who didn't speak inside of court, didn't talk in front of the man who tortured her for 4 days, but Chloe Jones and her mother did speak to the court inside, but they both spoke to the media. Let's take a listen.
I think I'm comfortable with the sentence that he got. You know, it could have been less. Thank God that it wasn't. So I'm just glad that I get to close this chapter and, you know, hopefully take matters in my own hands and actually have light actually just
able to heal.
Yeah, heal and see the light underneath, or the tunnel.
The tunnel.
And that's what the best thing is.
Yeah, well, I was very pleased because it just so happens that, like I mentioned in my statement, that he's been convicted of this more than once, charged even more, and I'm telling how many people that this has happened to before that he didn't get caught. So I was very happy knowing that he's going to be an old man when he gets out. It's going to be at least 25 years before anybody has to worry about this ever again from him.
Wow, such a strong mother and daughter. We know that the mother mentioned that her daughter has difficulty now retaining new information because of those injuries, but hopefully this will close this chapter for them. Let's bring in our trial attorneys who are standing by. Ron Zambrano in California, Michael Jaffer in Detroit. Let's speak first, Ron, about the sentence from the judge. Do you feel that this is justice? 25 years to 31.5.
Absolutely. I think everybody was wondering if she'd go less than 25 or just stick to the max of 25, but I think she was able to use the rules, work within the rules to get him above 25, and I think she got it right in the head, and I love how she started. He's going to get jail time. No one should be surprised about that.
So he'll be 59. He's 34 now. The minimum 25 years, 59 years old. Michael, why do you think this wasn't an attempted murder charge? I know there's some nuances in Ohio, but your best bet on why there wasn't more potentially that the prosecution could bring against him?
That puzzled me. I looked it up, and he did not meet the elements of attempted murder in Ohio, especially given the fact that she went with him. There's many things about this case where the elements of attempted murder would have given him the chance to actually beat the case, whereas going after him with these combined charges basically would have given them, and did give them, a better sentence than even an attempted murder sentence would have given, right? This was a unique situation with unique facts. So I thought about this, Julia, on the break. Had this judge sentenced 4 different defendants on each one of these charges, but each defendant had only one of these charges, so one of them had strangulation, one of them had felonious assault, one of them had kidnapping, one of them had abduction. She sentenced these 4 defendants separately. I don't think the combined sentence would have been 25 to 31 years. I think it's because of the fact that this situation was a horror movie. Right? This is basically, if I watched a horror movie with this fact pattern, I would say, this is kind of a stretch. It's not believable, right? Dousing her with gasoline and telling her, if you do anything, I'm going to light you on fire. You're never going to see your son again. So I think the combination of everything is why it culminated in a bigger overall sentence. But in Ohio, I don't think they would have been able to meet the burden of attempted murder. That definitely would have went to trial. I think, I'm guessing at this point that it would have went to trial, but it might have even pled down from that. So I think the right thing happened in the way the state handled it.
He is going away for a long time and no appeals because he pleaded guilty in this case.